first time that I saw your head round the door. Hello and welcome to Friday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic, where today we're going to be having a look at a puzzle by Professor Dorlir, a maths professor, called Yin-Yang Thermos. And I've just read the rules for this one. You can see there's hardly anything in this grid. And they're very, very cool indeed. It's sort of build your own thermometer puzzle, where there's going to be some thermos in the bottom row that go upwards or downwards, I think. But it's a rule set quite unlike anything I've ever seen. And yeah, anyway, a couple of the testers have looked at this and they say this is absolutely magnificent. Not desperately easy. But this is what we're going to be trying today. Now, speaking of puzzles that are not desperately easy, I've been actually gobsmacked by the response to me mentioning yesterday that it took me 2 hours and exactly 42 minutes to solve this puzzle, which is called Crux by Dyer. And I was... Well, I think the language I used was I couldn't inflict it on you, and it's very clear from looking at the comments on yesterday's video that actually you do seem to want to have it inflicted upon you. So it's on Patreon at the moment, and I posted it at 9:30 last night, and so if you're a patron of the channel you can watch it immediately, but we will post it to the channel, the main channel as well, in the coming days at some stage. So I mean, that's the main thing I just want to say is thank you. It's always a source of some amazement to me, the way that viewers interact with our puzzles, and yeah, I'm just delighted that, you know, a man wrestling with a Sudoku can be something people want to watch now. It is, yeah, it warms the cockles of one's heart. Anyway, in other news, what else can I tell you? There is a bonus video on the channel this morning, which is my solve of the Times crossword today, in which I was able to reminisce a little about my school days again. It's a very good puzzle, so if you are into your cryptic crossword solving, you might enjoy having a look at that. Now, the other thing I mentioned yesterday was that the ARG, the alternative reality game, which has been completed by a group of incredibly clever people over on the Discord server. There's two things I want to mention then. Again, I want to just thank Analytical Ninja, Chili, Xeon Risk and Math Pesto for setting the ARG, and to mention that if you want to have a go at the puzzles in the ARG, and you really should, there's a load of absolutely brilliant puzzles. There are a couple of links under this video where you'll find there's two links. One link will take you through the ARG experience as the solvers I'm about to read out experienced it. So it's not just the puzzles, you have to do a bit of lateral thinking as well. And then the second link is just to the puzzles themselves, and there's absolutely fantastic stuff there, so I really recommend it. And I'm going to shout out the following people who all had, you know, at least a hand in getting to the end of the ARG. Now, I probably am not mentioning everybody, and I apologise if I don't read out your name and you're expecting a mention. But I am assured that the following people definitely, you know, made great advances along the route. So Targ, Reason, Garlic Bread Fries, Kappa, Rockrat Zero, Edagawa 4869, J40, Marco, Pullman Poppins, Gentleman Jim, Eclectic Hoosier, and Cogs Play. I think all of you had you know, an important role. So many congratulations. It's incredible what the hive mind can achieve. I can tell you that we thought it would take you ages longer than it actually did, so it was very well solved. Now, the only other thing I want to say before we get on with the rules of Yin-Yang Thermos and see what Dorlir has in store for us is a very happy birthday to Luca, who's turned 18 today, And I know this because Cheyenne wrote to us, Luca, and said you'd appreciate a shout out and you enjoy watching the channel. So many happy returns. I hope that you have an enormous piece of chocolate cake, which is mostly icing. That will make it a good day for you. And with that, let's have a look at yin-yang arrows, and I will read you the rules. Now get ready. These are not normal. Well, they are. It's normal Sudoku rules apply. So we've got to put the digits 1 to 9 once each in every row, column, and 3x3 box. But now nothing is normal from now on. Shade some cells such that all shaded cells are orthogonally connected and all unshaded cells are orthogonally connected, and no 2x2 area may be fully shaded or unshaded. So this is the so-called yin-yang constraint, and what that means is that we could have a yin-yang shading that will be something like this. Let me put some shading in the grid, and we'll make these squares maybe a delightful purpley colour. Boom. Okay, so this would be a valid yin-yang shading. So let's talk about why is this a valid yin-yang shading. Well, if we double click on the greys, you can see that they are all connected, and they're all connected along cells that share an edge with each other. So what we don't have on the journey along the grey is this situation. Now these greys do touch, but they only touch at a point, and that's not enough in yin-yang. We have to be able to connect to any grey cell along shares that share an edge with one another. So this is better. The same is true, and it has to be true for the purples. If we double click the purples, you can see you can get to all the purples along edges of other purple cells. And then the final point is that you can't have a 2x2 of just one colour. So imagine you did that. That's not allowed, because although all the greys touch orthogonally and all the purples touch orthogonally, this area of purplage is too dense, and we mustn't do that or we'll get the puzzle wrong. So that's the first rule. Now, this is where it gets bonkers. Each cell on row 9 tells how many shaded cells are in that column. Furthermore, in each column, the shaded digits in that column must increase in value, going from either top to bottom or bottom to top. Cells separated by a red dot sum to 9, and a digit on a circle has its value increased by 9. So if we put 9 in that cell, it's actually worth 18. And that's presumably going to be relevant for some thermo that we're either going, well, that's either going to go upwards or downwards, presumably upwards from this square. Okay, so actually, as I'm thinking about this, I'm realizing it's more complicated than I thought, because the thermos are, yeah, okay. I was thinking all the thermos are going to go up from the bottom, but that's not going to work, is it? Because if you had a thermo going up there, and that all had to be grey, and then a thermo going up there, and that all had to be grey, you'd get too many 2x2s. So I've realised as I'm reading the rules that actually the shaded cells are going to have to sort of, they're going to have to be remote from one another to avoid too many 2x2s, and it's only the shaded cells that have the thermometer constraint applying to them. So this is crazy, actually. This might be a lot harder than my first reading of the rules before I turned on the webcam led me to believe. But do have a go. The way to play is to click the link under the video, as usual. But now I get to play. Let's get cracking. And we'll start off with the revealing of secrets, because there are important secrets to learn about yin-yang logic. So the first important secret about yin-yang logic is that that pattern is impossible. And that's because of this requirement. So a checkerboard pattern in a 2x2 cannot exist. And that is because, remember, we have to connect the greys to one another via orthogonal connections. We have to connect the greens to each other by orthogonal connections. And however you do this, however we connect the greens to each other, whatever circuitous route we take, you can see we're isolating the grey in a pond of green. And we mustn't isolate our greys in ponds of green, or vice versa, because these greys can't meet each other via orthogonal connections without having cells that have two colours. So no checkerboards is the first thing, and that leads on to a second principle of yin-yang, which is to do with the perimeter. Now, you can't have too many changes of colour in the perimeter of a yin-yang, and that's because of that checkerboard constraint in effect. So let's imagine those are grey, these are green, these are grey, and these are green. Is that possible? No, is the short answer, because to connect these greens to these greens, again, it doesn't matter what route we take. Any route is going to isolate these greys at the bottom. So what actually all you can do, you can have no changes of colour at all, that's fine. Or you could have one change of colour, that's fine. But once you're in this position, where you've got one change of colour basically along the perimeter, we couldn't make this square grey, because it's just that another version of the problem where we connect this up and this becomes isolated. So those are the two secrets of yin-yang, and they're almost always important in yin-yang puzzles. Often that second secret is more important than the first. So let's try and understand what's going on in this bottom row, because it must be about this. And I mean, the first thing I can see is that there has to be a thermo. There is effectively a 1 to 9 thermo, because there has to be a 9 in the bottom row. Let's just put it there. So if that's a 9, we're being right, so it's not a 9. That's the first thing I've worked out. That's not a 9. Because if it was a 9, we're saying there's 9 shaded cells in the column. But then, ignoring even the thermometer properties of this, there's got to be some greens on this side and there's got to be some greens on this side, because no other column can contain 9 grey cells, because these are effectively indexing how many grey cells there are. Imagine that's an 8 and that's, I don't know, it doesn't matter what it is, a 5. That's saying there's 5 grey cells in this column somewhere and 8 grey cells. So there's clearly a green cell in the 8 column and there's a green cell in the 5 column, and we couldn't join the greens up. So the 9, wherever it lives in the bottom row, has to be on an edge. It's either there or there. And wherever it lives, it's going to go, well, but it's not there, because, hang on. Yeah, cells separated by a red dot sum to 9. Right, and we can't put 0 into this square. This can't be a 9. So actually, it's a bit of a gimme from the rules, is that column is entirely grey, and that digit is a 9, and this is now a thermometer. We have to either ascend or descend. Well, obviously we've got the biggest digit in Sudoku at the bottom, so we've got to ascend or descend towards the bottom, depending on how you want to view that. You've got to descend in ascending sequence. And now that is a 4-5 pair, because those two squares add up to 9, and they can't be 1, 8, 2, 7 or 3, 6. So these are 6, 7, 8, 9. So it almost looks like it's trying to rope, doesn't it? If this was a 6, then this would be 4, 5, 6. This would be 1, 2, 3. This would be 1, 2, 3. This would be 7, 8, 9. Oh, right. Hang on. Let's just think about that then. So if this was 4, 5, 6, and this was 1, 2, 3, this cell would be a 1, 2, or a 3. So my first thought here is about this column and the amount of grey real estate we can put in this column. And this digit actually, I think, is a 1, 2, or a 3. And that's because I think it could have been a 4 or a 5 before, because the most grey real estate I could put in this column would be a bit like the example. It would be this, wouldn't it? Because I can't have a 2 by 2 of grey. So if I do that, that's the sort of maximum greyage I could put in column 2 without creating a 2 by 2. And that would require this to be a 5, which it can't be because of this red dot. So actually, given it can't be 5 or 4, it's 1, 2 or 3, I think. So that this digit is in one of those squares by Sudoku. But the digit the digit at the bottom, does it have to always be shaded, or is that not true? Let me just read the rules again, sorry. Each cell on row 9 tells how many shaded cells are in that column. I don't think this has to be shaded necessarily. So, what do we do next then? I think... right. It might not be about this column. It might be about this column, maybe. Because whatever this number is, it's not 9 now. And that means there is a green cell, at least one green cell, somewhere in this column. But there's also a grey cell somewhere in this column. And from our perimeter trick knowledge, it's going to depend which way up the greens and the greys go. But there can only be one change of colour. So if the green is lower than the grey in this column, then we'd have to connect this grey all around the perimeter like that. And if it's the other way round, if it's green on top of grey, then we have to connect the grey like that. But the problem is that could be grey as well, and then basically we're going to get loads of grey. I think, right, what we can say is that either, because there must be a grey in this column because of this, even if this is a 1, there's one grey in the column. And wherever you position that grey, it's got to connect along either this edge or this edge to the left-hand side. So either the bottom of the grid or the top of the grid is definitely entirely grey. And I actually suspect it's got to be the top of the grid. I don't know why. I just feel that it must be difficult to have the indexing numbers all grey. I know this could be total rubbish, but just my inclination as I think about it, it's interesting this is a low number. It sort of feels to me, because you can't have... Imagine that was an 8. What's the maximum this could be without creating a 2 by 2? I suppose, well, it could probably be 5 again, couldn't it? But you can't have sort of an 8 next to a 7, I don't think. That definitely feels like you're going to end up with a 2 by 2. Yeah, sorry, I'm not quite on the right wavelength yet, I don't think. So I know either this is grey, or this is grey, or both. That is still a possibility, I think. And well, what else do we know? We know that there is... every number appears in the bottom row. That number is also... it's not one of the big numbers, is it? So 8 in the bottom row is going to have an awful lot of grey real estate. This is the problem I've got in the moment. I've got in my head that the greys go like this wherever they're found. You know, so the grey 8 might be like that, the grey 7 might be like that. But that's not true. I've got to get that out of my head, because it's perfectly possible for that to be the geography of the grey... oh, sorry, the grey 8 column. So this could be an 8. And then, you know, so it's disparate, if you like. The thermometer is a broken thermometer. Although, sirens going past. So if this is, yeah, this has to be. Yeah, okay, well, hang on, that's quite interesting actually. I hadn't appreciated this. What is this cell in this column? Doesn't that have to be 9? Because this has to be part of a thermometer that either increases or decreases. Well, it can't increase from 8. I can't go 9, 10, 11, 12. That's not going to work. So this is the top of the thermometer, even though it's at the bottom of the grid. And therefore, I can't put 9 in the sequence of greys, so that would be a 9. Right. But that could be unshaded. Bobbins. Does that... I don't know if that changes things. I'm just going to think about that. So if that's unshaded and this is grey, what does that mean? So now I've got to put 9 in the sequence. Oh, well then it's totally different. That's annoying. That's weird. That is weird. So if you make the 8 unshaded in the bottom row, the thermometer turns round. Because now this sequence of digits, the lowest digit in it is 1. And that can't go there. So this is 1, and that's 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, hang on, that doesn't work there, does it? Because that square would get a bump. That square would be worth 9 plus 16, and then it... okay, that's interesting. So you probably can't do it there either. No, you can't. No, you can't. Oh, hang on. Now I've got confused. No, I'm not sure now. Yeah, if that's the... Hang on, let me just look at this, because I'm wondering how these all affect it. Because now I could put the 1 somewhere else, couldn't I? If you see what I mean. Because if I put the 1 there, it's actually worth 10. But then it would have to be above a 9. No. Yeah, so then I couldn't put the 9 anywhere higher unless I also put that in a circle. So I think that is still a 1. Hang on, let me just think about this. 1, 2. If it went like this, these would all be grey. They'd all have to be in a thermometer. Yeah, because this couldn't be the 1, could it? Because it would be worth... Well, it can't be the 1 by Sudoku. So we have to have an ascending thermometer that somehow still works, even with the presence of 3 cells in it that are throwing out the ordering. So you could never put 9 in a circle, because if you did put 9 in a circle, that digit is definitely smaller than it. So 9 is not in a circle. But any digit you put in that would be greater than a 9. Including 1, interestingly. Is that... I suspect that there is a way that you can just dismiss this, but I'm not... You've got to sort of... It's quite tricky, isn't it, to immediately see how to... That there is no way of doing that. I'm not even sure if this is the right chain of thought either. So maybe I shouldn't worry about this. Actually though... Actually... Ooh, right. this is, I think, going to be the crux of this. Crux. Is that a terrifying word again? I'm so terrified of that word following Jay's puzzle. And the reason that I've just sort of mulling this over now is I've noticed this can't be 8 and this can't be 8. So, well, they can't be green 8s. Because if you have a green 8 in either of those squares, the other digit is a 1. Because these two squares have to add up to 9. But if these are either of these is a green 8, we know the 1 goes above the thingy, so the green 8. So we'd have 2 1s in the box. And I think, looking at this, if this was green 8 or this was green 8, you seem to get a 5 in this row, and that's going to clash here, isn't it? Because this is going to have a 4 in it. So it's going to meet that 4. So I wonder whether this is the point. You can't put 8 here because it was going to break Sudoku. You can't put 8 there. So if we can break 8 down here in this column, then we're in a position where we know that the thermometer goes backwards, because we know there's a grey 8 in the bottom row, which is the tip of its thermo. I was wondering if that meant we could grey these. I'm not sure it does actually. I've got it anyway. That's for another moment. Let's just have a think about this. So can you possibly arrange, if you're going to throw 3 digits out of sequence because of circles, is it possible? Is it possible to do this? I mean, these 3 have to be ascending, don't they? Within the sequence, obviously. They have to ascend, because otherwise these 3 will break the sequence. These 3 have to ascend. So the higher you make this starting digit... Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. So if we made this 4, for example, this would have to be at least 5. Actually, that's not a very good choice. Let's make that 5, 6, 7. But then we could put... No, but where's 9 going now? Yeah, the 9 has to appear before this digit, doesn't it? Otherwise we can't ascend, unless the 9 is in there. But then, if the 9's in there, that's lower than it. Yeah, so the 9 has to... So the only way this works, the only way this could work is if this is 9. That's forced. But now, this square... Yeah, it doesn't work. It doesn't work because this square now... This is definitely higher than 9. And this can't be higher than 9. Sorry, it's obvious. Right, that's really good. That's really good. Because now in the bottom row, 8 is grey. So 8 is not there. So 8 is somewhere over here. Now let's just go back to working out what a grey 8 meant, because I thought it meant the thermo went backwards or downwards or something. Yeah, so now... Well, yeah, no, this is huge. This is huge, yeah. Not only do we know that this is the highest number on its thermo, but 9, because we've got a 1 in the first row, that can't be a 1. So what digit is this? The thermo that reaches up to the 8 goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It must do. There are 8 grey cells, and we must ascend to the 8. So the 9 is the thing that's allowed to intercept along that thermo. But because we can't start with a 1 here, I think that has to be... well, I was going to say that has to be a green 9. And it does, except, of course, the 8 can be anywhere. So this is now going to get floaty, isn't it? In the sense that we're going to have a grey thermometer going down to 8. So this exact pattern of thermometer is in, well, it's not there actually. So it's not in this column. If it was in either of these two columns, we'd have a 3. I thought it was going to break. No, but it doesn't, because this doesn't get as high as 6. I thought, because this would be a 3-6 pair if it's in either of these columns. In this column, again, these are going to break it up, aren't they? I think we've convinced ourselves that you just run into massive problems if you start interrupting continuous sequences of things with the circles. Let's just double check that we agree with ourselves there. So if we're going to try and have an ascending sequence towards 8, obviously these are going to be higher than 8, and that doesn't work. So that's nonsense. So we can't put it there. So it's either this one, this one, this one, or this one. Now if it's this one or this one, we end up with an 8 on a dot. So this would be a 1-8 pair. I don't see why that's a problem, but maybe it is. Maybe it's the fact that if you had it in this column, you'd have a lot of grey. Yeah, you'd have all this grey and a green on top. So then all of those would be grey, and the bottom row would be entirely grey. It could. Well, we know the green 9 is in one of those cells in the top row. So green, so that not green 9 necessarily, but 9 is in one of those squares, and 9 is in one of those squares in box 4. One of those is a 9. One of these is an 8. And well, maybe if this was 8. These two probably have to be quite low, don't they? I know what this is. I know what this is. They're all going to cycle, aren't they? They're all going to cycle. Because the 7 in wherever the 7 is in this row, that's now got a problem. Let me just show you what I mean by that. Let's put the 7 there. If this is 7, that's again got to be the tip of its thermo, which means we've got a descending ascending sequence again. So where are we putting 8 and 9 in the sequence of greys leading up to a 7 in this column? This square here cannot be 1, and it cannot be 9. So, does that mean... Actually, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about this. I was thinking that maybe that meant you had to have this sort of thermo, and it was all going to cycle, and then you're going to find a 6 thermo that's sort of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then a 5 thermo. Yeah, and then the problem is that you might... I don't know, actually, now. Yeah, I mean, where is the 1? Yeah, maybe this is the way to think about it. Where is the 1 in the 7's column. That's it. That's it. You do have to do this, because the 1 in the 7's column can't be in row 1 or row 2 because of these ones. And bear in mind, this might not be here. This could be, well, it can't be there. It could be over here, over here, over here. We don't know where this structure is, but we know it exists somewhere, and therefore we can't put a 1 here. In the column with the 7, you can't put a 1 here, you can't put a 1 here. So the furthest up the grid you can put the 1 in this column is here. Now you can't put the 1 further down, or you're going to, I mean, you could put it in a circled cell, but then you're going to have problems with this digit and these digits, which can't be bigger than this digit anymore. So you're going to have to put it in a non-circled column. And I think you've got to put it here. But if that's right, neither of these digits can be in the sequence of the thermo in this column, because they will be bigger than 1. So these have to be 8 and 9, and that has to be 8. That's really, it's absolutely remarkable. So this column is actually, well, it might be here, but it might not be, but it's of this structure. Now, here's the next thought that occurs to me about that, which is that there is now no way on Earth, I mean, I don't think there was a way on Earth anyway, but there's definitely no way on Earth now that the 8 and the 7 can be alongside one another, because you're going to have 2 by 2s all over. In fact, you're going to have 7s hitting each other as well, obviously, yeah. But you also would create yin-yang problems of monumental size. In fact, look at that. Look at that. You can't even put the 7 here, because then it will clash here. And with this one, we do know goes there. So the 7... Can you put something that doesn't have to be in the thermo? I'm wondering if this could be the 7 column. And it would go 8, 9, and you wouldn't care that this was a massive digit because it's not shaded. It doesn't say that the circles have to be shaded, even though the implication is clearly that they're shaded because they have a value that's 10 or 9 different from their stated value. A digit on a circle has a value increased by 9, so there's a strong presumption all of these are grey, but I don't think they necessarily have to be, in which case the 7 could be here. Right, now do you get iteration though? Because now the question must be 6, mustn't it? And 6, the 1 in the column that has the 6 in it, let's say this is 6, the 1 in this column cannot be any higher in the grid than here, because the ones in the 7, 8, 9 columns have consumed the ones in the top 3 rows. So you could have a 1 here, and you can't have a 1 further down this column. Unless... I was just wondering whether you could ascend. Could this be the lowest digit on its thermo? Maybe here. No, but hang on. I don't think that's possible actually, because I was wondering whether you could use these 3 circles and go 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3 or something. But I don't think you can put a 6 there, can you? Because aren't we certain? I don't think you can put a 6 here, because there's a 6 on the 8th thermometer that's either there, it's either in these cells or these cells, and then the 6 on the 7th thermometer we know has to be in the other box in the bottom row. We can't put, You can't put the 8 and the 7 in the same box because the 7s will clash. So that means that the 6s in this box and this box are on the 8 and the 7 thermo, so the 6 in the bottom row. Hang on, if that's correct, the 6 in the bottom row has to go there by a process of Sudoku almost. That's it. Oh, it's that simple. I'm so slow. It's that simple. Right. So the point is, it doesn't matter which way. It doesn't matter where the 8 and the 7 go in the bottom row. It's going to matter at some point, but it doesn't matter yet, because there's either an 8 or a 7 in those 3 squares, and there's either an 8 or a 7 in those 3 squares, because this square cannot be 8 or 7, and you can't put the 8 and the 7 in the same box. And once you've established that, then the Sudoku on the 6s, which could be the other way round, you know, we could have a 6 in one of those and a 6 in one of these, but by Sudoku there must be a 6 here. And that 6 is telling us that in this column there is a thermo of grey cells that ascends to a 6, because we can't go 6, 7, 8, 9, you know, 10, 11, 12 in this column. And that means that that thermo goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that means it must start here, because that's the only place it could possibly start. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is a 9, because the 9s, which might not be here, but the 9s in row 1 and row 2 are on these thermos wherever they live. This is just bonkers. The 8 is going to be on the 7 thermo, so that's an 8, that's a 7. All these 3 squares are therefore unshaded. All these squares are shaded. And now this can't be unshaded. So we've got to be very careful with doing anything with these 2 thermos now, because they could be in the wrong place. But this 6 thermo is in the right place. And that square is a 6 by Sudoku. And no, I don't know the colour of that. But don't I know the colour of this? This can't be green, because then we've got too many changes of colour in the perimeter. I can't join this green. No, I can't join this green. It's a good example, actually. You can't join the green to this green, because the only way to do it would be like that. And now I've isolated column 1 as grey. So this must be grey, and therefore this must be green to avoid a 2 by 2. And look at this. That green is very isolated and has to get out. So all of those turn green. That's grey by a process of 2 by 2age. That's green by a process of 2 by 2age. And this column is a 2. Because there are 2 greys. Okay, that's terrific, and we have got roping. Look, we've now proved I thought we might have roping, and we do. So this is a 1-3 pair. I feel like I'm going to sneeze. Do not sneeze. Right, what does that mean? How are we going to... Do we have to go to 5s now? Oh, I find it very difficult actually to Oh, hang on. Yeah, we're going to have some greens. This one. I don't think we thought it could be 8 or 7 before, but it clearly can't be 8 or 7 now, because we get so many 2 by 2s in this column. Yeah, no, I did think about whether that could be 7 before. I was worried that it could be a 7, but now it can't be, because if this is 7, we're going to have too many 2 by 2s. So I think all of those are green. I think. But that's because I know there's an 8 or a 7 in this box in one of those 3 squares. And we worked out, in fact, it's not in this square. So there's an 8 or a 7 on one of those two squares. Oh, hang on, this is it. This is it. I tell you what, this puzzle is really clever. It's really clever. Okay, because I'm just going to double check I agree with my brain here. Brain, do I agree with you? This definitely can't be 8 or 7. There must be an 8 or a 7 in this domino. Now, if there was an 8 or a 7 here, we worked out that that couldn't exist with these funny clues. So there's an 8 or a 7 here, but now this we can see I've broken the puzzle effectively. There can't be a 7 here because this domino adds up to 9, and that would be a 2, and that's going to break that square. So I think you've got to put 8 in one of those squares, which is going to require me to totally change this highlighting, I'm afraid. It's wrong. It's definitely wrong. 8 is in one of those squares with 1. 7 is in one of these squares. So 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. So that is a 2-7 pair. And there's a 1 in one of those squares, which means there's a 1 in one of these squares. That's interesting. Might be there. And then in the 7 column, you've got to put 9 here and 8 in one of those. So there's a 9 in one of those and an 8 by Sudoku in one of these. There's all sorts of Sudoku-age going on. But let's come back to this, because we know whichever one of these is exactly equal to 8 has a 9 in its top row, so that's not 9. And then that column goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, doesn't it? So the 1 is not there. So there is a 2 in one of these squares, a 3 in one of these, a 4, 5, 6, 7, and we know there's an 8 in one of those. So that means that there's a 5 here. But we don't know what colour that is, I don't think. So sorry, that 5 was just by Sudoku. Although I do now think that they're very likely to be grey, but I don't think I'm allowed to assume that, so let's not assume that yet. Ah, here's a really obvious point. In this column, oh, this is really obvious, sorry, this is huge. In this column, whether this is 1 or 8, there's a green in this column. Well, how do I connect it to those greens? I've got to connect it round the perimeter, so all of these are green. Which means that's grey. Well, I'm trying to visualise how that works. I can't do it. The other thought, though, is that there must be a grey in this column, mustn't there? And wherever that grey is, the bottom, I've got to connect that grey round the perimeter to this grey. So the bottom row is all grey. That's green. What I was trying to work out before is if that's the 7, all of those turn grey. That's not right. That doesn't work. That's a checkerboard, I think. I'm not 100% certain. But if this column is the 7 column, we know there's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 grey thermo there. We know there's an 8, 9 pair in green at the top of the grid. But this green has to get out. And how does it get out and connect to its friends? It has to take that square. And that is a checkerboard. So that's wrong. So that means that this is not the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 thermo. These squares come out. This is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is 8, 8, 9. This is all grey. This is green. Both of those are grey by 2x2 rules. Oh, I'm going to have a checkerboard. Nah. No. No. I can just do that, can't I? That's going to be okay, probably. Those two squares are now green to avoid checkerboard. That's green to avoid checkerboard. That's green to avoid 2x2. That's green to avoid checkerboard. Wow. Okay. Oh, and we look at that. We've without recourse to the fact that these were probably going to be grey, we have proved they're grey, and we've proved that's grey. I wonder if I was meant to assume these were all grey at the start. I'm not sure. But well, now, how could that be the 8? If that's the 8, we know all of those are shaded, and that's going to give me a 2x2. So the 8 is in the final column. These are all shaded. This is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 octuplet. That's a 9 at the top of the column. This is, oh, this is big. That's got to be green to be a 2x2, but that has to connect to its friends. And look, it's sort of cul-de-saced in here, so all of those have to be green to get out. That's got to be green to avoid a 2x2 here. 1, 2, 3. Ah, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. It's a beautiful puzzle, this. Look, this is a 5. I've got 2 more greys to put in this column, but if I put them in a domino, I'll create a 2x2, so they've got to be disparate. That's therefore green, and that's got to get out, and that's got to get to touch its friends, and this domino at the bottom has to get out. And we've got sort of a green thing, a comb effect here that we've managed to build. And this is a 1. And it's right. So we did it by shading, but it actually has the right number in it. It's going to be fascinating to try and work out what those numbers are to make that work. But let's just finish off what we've got in the bottom row. We've got a 3-4 pair here. That has to be 7. So we've got 7 grey cells, and we've only put 5 in. Right, so you can't have grey in either of these. Because if that's grey, where do you put the other grey? There's 1 more grey to place now in this. There's 2 greys basically to put in this rectangle. So if I make that grey, I can't put either of these as grey or have a 2x2. And any of these being grey shuts off this green from getting out. So that doesn't work, and it works by symmetry there. So both of those are green. I could put 2 more greys here. I could put 1 grey here and 1 grey here. I can't put 2 greys there because that would get me to a count of 5 in column 5. Oh, hang on, that's a 7 by mathematics. Right, so that's not 7. I feel I've underdone my Sudoku at this point, so apologies if you're cross with me about that. I've not really thought about Sudoku very much. Dorlir, perfect puzzle. No, I do like Sudoku. You know I like Sudoku. It's just I also like all of the other rinky-dinks that we have to deal with. There's a 2 up here. So, okay. What does this mean? Is this... Well, actually no, we must be ascending here, mustn't we, towards this total. Because that is a double-digit number by the time we've added 9 to it. So this thermo that starts with 5 has a higher digit here, which is a 9. That's beautiful as well. Even that simple step is beautiful, because this is higher than 5, but lower than 10. But it can't be 6, 7 or 8, so it's 9. And that means there's a 9 in one of those. Now whatever we put in here is going to work, isn't it? Although it can't be many things. It's either 1 or it's as high as 6. I don't know, there might be a restriction on that. So 1, 6. If it's 6, no, it's not 6. Because if it's 6, these are both higher than 6, and that would be a 7, say, and this would have to be 8 or 9 by Sudoku to be higher than 9 plus 7 or something like that. So it would have to be 8 or 9, and it couldn't be. So that's a 1. So there's a 1 in one of these two squares. Now this square can't be 2 or 3. It might be able to be 4. Can't be 5. If it's 6, that could be 7. Okay. Oh, well, it can't be 8. That can't be 8. So that's the point. 8 goes there. So 8 is in one of those two cells. And if that's 4 or 6, if it's 6, that's definitely 7. Because it can't be 8 or 9. If it's 4, this can't be 5. So it's... If it's 4, this is 6 or 7, I think. Which is... That's actually... Hang on. 4... What did I do there? I feel like I made it... So if this is 6, this is 7. If this is 4, this is 6 or 7. So actually this does have 2 options. Do I know what that is? Is there part of these rules that tell me what that is? I don't know. I know those two add up to 9. Doesn't matter that this is grey. No, it's only the bottom row that matters for grey. Okay. Okay, so this is what we've got to think about. How do I finish off this Sudoku then here? What's under pressure? These squares are 2, 3 and 4. And that's not 4. No, that's not it, is it? Sorry about this, I'm stuck. Hopefully it will not be a long stuckage, but I am stuck. 5 by Sudoku goes there. So 5 is... No, we don't know about 5. What about this row? I haven't put in 6, 8 or 9. Nearly, but not quite. That's not 8. That's not 9. That hasn't worked. I suspect it's just going to be a digit or something that I haven't found yet. That's 8. 8's in a domino there. I don't... No. No, I've changed my mind actually. It might be grey digits in this column. Because that digit has to be a high number. When I say high, I mean it doesn't have to be very high, but it has to be at least 6. And that feels like it's getting too... Neither of these can be 8. Oh, look, 7 also. Right, no, I didn't see this, but neither of these can be 7, 8 or 9. Could we reverse it? Oh, they can't be 1 or 2 either. No, you can't. Oh, I almost made a bad boo-boo there. Because I've been assuming, with this being 3 or 4, I was ascending in the greys towards the top of a thermo, but neglecting, I didn't think of it until I almost made a mistake, but it doesn't, as it happens, it wouldn't have been a mistake, because I was forgetting you could have gone 1, 2, 3, 4, say, but you can't here. These can't be 1 or 2. So these are at least 3, and therefore we can't ascend towards a 3 or a 4 here. So this is the base of the thermo. So if this is grey, this is at least a 6, but these can't be 7, 8 or 9. So that actually, by the logic of this incredible rule set, is green, and therefore that is grey. And now, so now that's bobbins worthy, because all I've done is equalised the greys in columns 4 and 5. I wanted to actually... does it work the same here though? If that's... Yeah, it might... I think it's the same, isn't it? Yeah, this can't be 4 or 5. So whatever this is at least... In fact, this is huge. Whatever this is, if this was grey, this would be at least 8, and then they couldn't be filled. So it is clear. That's got to be green. That's got to be grey. So that probably can't be 8 now, even though that can be... Oh, no, actually, that's wrong. Wow. Okay, so I can't assume this can't be 8, because I've realised that could be 9, and that could be 9 plus whatever that digit is. So I can't assume what that is. But what do we get from that then? So this is ascending. It's still ascending, isn't it? Even though it's only of length 3. Yeah, because neither of these can be 1 or 2. Right, so we are ascending. This is higher than 3. So it could be 4. That's not very good, is it? So it could be 4, 5. No, it can't be 6, because that can't be 7. So it's only 4 of... so it's 4, 5 pairs. So that's a 6. And that's a 7, because it's got to ascend. And now what's going on in this row? I've not put in a digit, which is 7. That's a 7. Okay. But this digit is higher than 4 now. So this is 5 or 6 only. So it can't be 7, 8 or 9. Okay. Is that good? It probably is. I think I am going to have to pencil mark these as well. Okay, so these are ascending. So 3 or 4 here. Oh, this is... No, sorry. What I'd forgotten is that all higher digits, like 5, 6, 7, for example, are all out of bounds for this square. So this can't... Well, this clearly can't be 9 by Sudoku. So it is 8. It's the only thing it can be. And that is 9. That's beautiful. That is so clever as a way of resolving these two digits. Right, so what's that doing, though? Now, that square is a 1 or a 2. And these squares are 1, 2, and 9. And that can't be 9. So 9... I see. 9 is just placed in this box. Sorry, that's been clear. And the thing is, that square is now axiomatically higher than this one because it's 9 plus whatever I actually decide to put in that cell, which is a bit strange. Unless this is Sudoku restricted in a way that I'm not anticipating it being. Let's just work it out. It could be 3, 4, or 6, I think. Might be wrong about that, but that's all of those seem to me at first blush to be possible. 3, 4, 5, and 6. So this is 3, 4, or 5. These are 3, 4, and 5. That's not 5. So, right, if we look at this column now, there's a 2, 3, 4, 5 quadruple. So these are from 6, 7, and 9. And therefore that square has to be 8. And this square has to be 2. Okay, so maybe Sudoku will help me. Sudoku, please help me. That means this isn't 2. Can any of this be resolved? That's not 9. That's not 6. That's not 9. So in this row, we've got 6, 7, and 8 to place. So that's 6 or 8. I need, is there a hidden red dot or something that I can avail myself of? Don't know. There might be, but I'm not seeing where it is. No, I really don't. Okay, so this is 1. Oh, 6 in the middle box. There we go. That's going to be it. 6 goes there. So that's 7, 9, 6, 8, 9, 7. So now we know those two digits. They're 1 and 8, and we know the order. And that does the 1 and the 2. So that does a 2 here. Gives me a 3, 4 pair. 1 and 3 are done on this side. Okay, that feels... I feel more hopeful now. 3, 4. Right, where's 6 in this column? It's only got one position. Oh, that's it. 6 has only got one position. So that's 5, that's 4, that's 4, that's 5. That's 3, 4, 5. Well, this is just a sensational Sudoku puzzle. It is a sensational Sudoku puzzle. And now 2 and 3 go in that order, and that might be correct. Sort of scanning the Sudoku to see if it feels right. Let's click. Yay, the solution is correct. Absolutely amazing. 25 people in 23 days, only one a day. I mean, that deserves so much attention. It's brilliant. Dorlir, again, you are very original and very, very clever. That is a beautiful puzzle. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Very interesting. Had to think in very unusual ways. Felt quite discombobulated at times. But at the end, you can do it. Yin-yang thermos ticked off. Let me know in the comments how you got on. I hope you had a go, and I enjoy the comments, especially when they're kind. And we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.